going to those who are victims of identity theft. Joining us now is former Arkansas Governor, the great Mike Huckabee. Gov, good to see you. Thanks for joining us on The Bottom Line. So another $1.6 billion to investigate fraud in COVID spending, but isn't there like $500 billion of unspent COVID cash that we could use to go after the COVID fraudsters?
Well, of course there is, Sean, and that would make a whole lot more sense. But that's why the government won't do it, because it makes sense. Right. And I think we've all come to be used to the idea that the government doesn't do things that make sense. They do things that are stupid. And this is stupid. And let me be very clear as to why I say that. It is because the COVID money was so thrown out there without really accountability. And I don't just blame Joe Biden's administration. This goes back during the Trump years as well. It was just thrown out there because it was like all hands on deck. We've got to throw money at the economy, some of which probably saved some businesses. I'm not saying it didn't. But of course there's going to be fraud and abuse and outright theft when you just make money that easily accessible. So the way to get it back is not to say, oh, let's create some more government jobs, government people, because I'm going to tell you, a big chunk of this money that they're talking about allocating, it will end up being completely defrauded from the government, and there'll be some people, bad actors, who will find a way to skim that off as well.
Governor, I just want to correct something they didn't steal $5 trillion. But the theft is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. And I think we all...
just hundreds of billions.
Yeah, no, I did, but it wasn't $5 trillion. Right. The money allocated was in the trillions. The theft was hundreds of billions. But we all need to get on board with what Joe Biden is trying to do. I agree, we can find the money to allocate toward additional resources. But they're trying, he's pro-incarceration here. He's pro getting taxpayer money back. He's pro throwing people in the clink. He extended the statute of limitations on these crimes to 10 years in September or August of last year. We need perp walks. We need a whole... Do you know how many people have been arrested, tried, and sentenced to multiple years in jail for stealing millions of dollars from Paycheck Protection Program loans? Like, there was a guy yesterday, I think it was Florida man, Broward County, $2 million stolen PPP money, 6 years in prison. Orange County, February 17th, California. Dude, again, they all bought Lamborghinis. But we need to all join together and say, COVID, mistake. PPP, the way it was handed out, mistake. We should have never shut down the economy. And we're going to throw people in prison, all of them. 6 years, 10 years, let's do it.
Got no problem with that, but maybe the better way to do it, rather than create some new government jobs, is to put out an appeal for bounty hunters. You find the missing money, you help lead to a conviction, there's a reward. That would make a whole lot of sense to me. I just don't have a lot of faith in the government creating a whole new program to go after a whole new program that they created. And I wish I did, but I've seen how it's been squandered, and I've watched time and again when one way of dealing with squandered money is to squander some more. And that's why I'm just not buying in that this is going to be the save-all and we're going to really go after the bad actors. Maybe we do. I hope you're right. I just don't see it.
We should go after bad actors. I agree with that, but we should use existing cash. But I want to pivot with you, Gov, because climate czar, the great John Kerry, trying to criticize fossil fuels while listing all the benefits they provide. Listen to this.
That crisis is caused by unabated emissions from fossil fuels that burn so that we can propel our vehicles, heat our homes, light our businesses. It's how we choose to provide energy to our communities around the world. But simply allow choices that were made years ago to continue because it's easier or because business as usual is better, makes more money, because people don't want to embrace the possibilities of a future.
Gov, business as usual. I think this guy wants us to go back to the dark ages, and Kerry talked about, businesses and homes and cars. The one thing he forgot to mention in that little diatribe was, how about private aircraft, which he flies on?
Yeah, I mean, come on, it's such a hypocrisy. John Kerry is a gas bag. Let's just be blunt. That's what he is. And the biggest waste of energy is when he opens his mouth and he gives this pontificating speech about how the rest of us ought not to want to heat our homes or take care of our fuel to get us from place to place. I guess he doesn't want us to go see our relatives or our grandkids. Well, some of us might think that's cool. John Kerry flies around on his private jet. So here's when I'll believe he has any credibility. When he has a solar-powered jet, or when he really goes after the Chinese, where most of the pollution in this world comes from, when he starts doing that, then maybe he ought to come back and give us a lecture. But for now, he might ought to just leave it alone. And if he really needs to get somewhere and he wants to lead by example, let him get a horse-driven buggy. But then, of course, the horse would have some flatulence, and that would create another issue that he would be against. And so I guess he can't even do that. Maybe he can just get him a walking pole and walk to his next location, which I hope is far from a microphone and a camera.
Right, he can't just, again, he's a polluter because he insists on traveling the globe to lecture us and other countries about our misdeeds in using cheap and plentiful fossil fuels. He was in Panama today. Can we just put up just an isolated shot of him while he was lecturing us about using fossil fuels to, travel and heat our homes and light our businesses? He got new face work done for this adventure. You can look at him. He got a new hairdo and he got his face worked on. But what is even more offensive, Governor, is that it's not just what he says about the United States. We take our emissions to zero, and it wouldn't make any difference in climate change, fighting climate change on the world stage. He has admitted that. But he also has told Africa and sub-Saharan Africa, where you have fastest growing population, about 1 billion people there, and many people literally live in the dark. And he and the UN have told them, don't you dare develop your fossil fuels, your oil and your natural gas, to light these countries, to bring these people and lift these people out of poverty. So I call him a giganto-chinned elito bigot. That's what he is. He wants the people of sub-Saharan Africa to remain in poverty and in the dark.
I think you nailed it pretty good. That's exactly what he wants. He just doesn't want anyone else to live as nicely as he's lived his entire life. And I find that disgusting. You ought to want other people to be able to live above where they are now. You just mentioned the folks in Africa. Look, the greatest pathway to economic prosperity is affordable and readily available energy for everything. It powers businesses, but he doesn't see it that way. And I think one of the great tragedies of people like John Kerry is their complete insensitivity. And I would suggest, rather than him traveling all over the globe and lecturing people, has he ever heard of a Zoom call? Maybe he could blow that hot air right through the Zoom mechanism, and he wouldn't even have to leave home. He could do it right from his tony little property over on the Massachusetts coast. Wouldn't that be better for the globe for him to do that? Let's suggest it.
Thank you, Governor. That's a really good idea.
No, I was just going to say, I speak from personal experience. That's a lot of money in his face. A lot of money.
Okay. Well,
I stumped you. Go ahead.
She is stumping me, Gov. But what frustrates me about this is a plan to grow the Chinese economy, to empower the Chinese economy, because we're going to make batteries in China. The critical minerals that go into the key components of the electrification of America is going to come from China. And so the Chinese sit back and watch this buffoon, and they love this. They're like, this is great. Keep going, John Kerry. We'll actually fund you, John Kerry, because we're just going to get richer and America's going to get poorer. And I wish John Kerry and other Democrats would love America and the American people a little more, to think about our future and the kind of future our kids will inherit, that we're not sold out to China.
I would totally agree. And I wish more Americans understood that we have hundreds of years of readily available fuels under our own feet that we can get out of the ground, we can do it efficiently, and we can do it economically. And what that means is that we can live better lives. We are polluting far less than we ever have as a nation because we continue to find new technologies to be able to use this fuel in a much more environmentally friendly way. So let's use it. And if somebody develops a marketplace that becomes equally available and affordable, then we can all transition to it. But we're not there yet. And until we get there, we ought to be grateful to God that under our feet we have an extraordinary abundance of readily available energy, and we ought to use it, enjoy it, and prosper from it, and just be glad of it.
But instead of developing it, they've big booted our fossil fuel industry and created a $400 billion green energy slush fund. Listen to this, Governor.
For our part, the United States is highlighting 77 announcements from 8 agencies and offices valued at nearly $6 billion. This is more than double the commitments that we highlighted last year in terms of dollar value, and thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the most significant piece of climate legislation in our history, we will be doing even more.
There you go. They said the quiet part out loud.
I was going to say the most important thing he just did was admit something that we all knew to be true. I don't know. This is when, it's called a gaffe. A gaffe in politics means that a politician told the truth. What he just admitted was that the Inflation Reduction Act was not about inflation or reducing any bit of it. It was all about climate change. It was spending a lot of taxpayer money in order for this phony facade of pretending that somehow we're going to wave the magic wand and we're going to be able to eliminate fossil fuels in the next 10 years. Well, grab your wallets, because we're not. It's not going to happen. And the sooner John Kerry and the pontificating folks like him quit telling this nonsense, the better off our economy and the world will be.
Well said, Governor Huckabee. Thank you for joining us. Always smart. Appreciate it.